welcome to session 2 of our Start with the End in Mind webinar. Now, I'm Jo, and joined with me today is Craig Hawthorne. We are founders of Culture Stretch, bringing over 50 combined years of knowledge and expertise around culture, engagement, leadership and communication. And I'm really pleased to have you all here today. Craig will be keeping an eye on the chat box, so if you have any questions, please pop them in there and we'll aim to answer those at the end of the sessions because it is a short session today. And as I've said, we're recording, and the recording will be in your inbox along with the resources that we plan to share, one of which will give you actionable steps on the things that I'm covering today. But before I start, I know you can all hear me. Can you just all find your reactions button and give me a thumbs up if you can see the presentation I am sharing? Sometimes when people join with Google Mail and stuff, they can't always see it. So I just want to check that everybody can see it.
Yeah, lots of thumbs up, so I think we're okay.
Okay, good, good, good. Fabulous. So following on from session 1, for those of you that were with us on session 1, we really wanted to bring home the message that hiring the right people is important. However, whilst it's a start, it isn't enough. We all know how much culture matters. We hear about it enough, but sometimes we can get stuck in the how we can actually maybe create it or even improve the culture we already work in. And there are lots of aspects to culture, but for me, the importance of effective communication with each other can never be underestimated. So today we are going to explore why performance is not just a product of individual competence, but that it's actually shaped by how well we understand people, how we relate to one another, and how we communicate with one another. And by the end of the session today, I'm hopeful that you will see this isn't about fixing difficult people. It's actually about understanding different behaviours, and the goal is to get better results through better relationships. So great communication skills, I'm sure you will agree, are pivotal to today's workplace. Poor communication, it leads to chaos, not cohesion. And that itself not only impacts the culture of the business you work in, but also the trust and the performance. And one of my favourite quotes by George Bernard Shaw simplifies how everyone is different. No two people think, behave or act the same, and therefore there's no one size fits all when it comes to communication. It really does depend on your own preferences and those of the person that you are communicating with. But why does that really matter? Well, according to a 2023 study by Think in Focus, an estimated 70% of workplace errors in the UK are due to miscommunication, estimating an annual cost of around 50 to 70 billion in lost productivity. That's huge. And much of this stems from lack of clarity, assumptions, not understanding each other properly. And that leads to disengagement and low morale. And these aren't tech glitches, they're everyday misunderstandings between people, humans, whether somebody assumes intent, whether somebody uses blame language, or whether somebody just stops listening. They're small breakdowns, but they add up fast. And that's why focusing on emotional intelligence and personality differences and real connection isn't just a fluff exercise. It is fundamental to recovery and to retention of time and to trust and performance. So just why we actually refer to it as soft skills when it's a really hard thing to master is beyond me. But the good news is it can be learned and improved and mastered. So today we're going to focus on 3 fundamental pillars to help you improve communication, effective communication. And the first one is one of my favourites, emotional intelligence, moving into psychological safety. And then despite this picture, we're moving into our friend productive conflict. And for me, there is an overarching connection between these 3 pillars, and that is our differing personalities and how we show up in the workplace. So before we dive into that first pillar of emotional intelligence, let's just talk about personalities, that we all have different filters, different lenses through which we interpret tone, and pace and body language. And without awareness of these different personalities, it's really easy to take things personally. We can misread that intent, or we can get really frustrated unnecessarily. And this is often where communication breaks down, when we simply don't understand what somebody thinks and how they behave and act differently to us. And at Culture Stretch, we have a preferred personality tool, and there are many available in today's business arena. And I'm not here to promote one over another. I'd just like to provide some awareness of the simplicity of how different people can be. Now, that being said, sometimes when people are exactly the same, there can be just as much of an overwhelming communication issue. But whether you are similar or different or somewhere in between, the understanding of your own and the other person's preference and tendencies in communication is key. The missing link here is the understanding. So to simplify things, this axis that you see here creates a sense of what I'm talking about. It's not about boxing people in, by no means. It's about tuning in to people. And the hard reality is that people are complex, and we're all a blend of everything you see on the screen here, but all with differing proportions. So I'd just like you to take a moment to think about how you prefer to communicate. Look at this graphic. The top two boxes, they reflect people whose communication is fast-paced and outspoken. And I'm talking about verbally, body language, hand gestures, written communication, speed of action, decision-making. Now let's flip to the bottom. The bottom of this map, this represents those of us who act more cautiously and are more reflective, of a more reflective nature. And I'm now talking about more considered in their body language, more thoughtful in both their verbal and written communication. They like to take time to consider others and the facts in a more reflective way. So think about where you are there, top or bottom. And then we go left and we go right. Let's think about this. Those on the left-hand side, those people are more questioning and skeptical. They like to challenge the norm, things, systems, people. They're considered to be task-oriented people. And then if we move to the right, those people are people. They like to be around people, to do work through people. They care about people. They like to be surrounded by people. They like to get others involved and collaborate. So have a think about that. And I know in different situations, we can all make different choices at different times. And some of you will be thinking, and quite rightly, but I am a mix of all of those. I know you are. But when the pressure is on, what is your most natural go-to area of this graphic? Because the first step of effective communication is self-awareness, understanding your own tendencies in communication. How do you tend to behave in communication? Okay, so have a think about that. I could talk about this all day, but as we don't have that much time and this is a small part, I'm just going to ask you if you feel happy to do so, maybe share your preference in the chat with a, I don't know, top left, top right, bottom left, something that simple so Craig can see you in the chat. And I'm happy to share, if you've not guessed it already, I'm quite fast-paced and maybe a little bit outspoken. So I sit in that top left-hand quadrant, but I do lean into the top right as well. Craig, can you view the chat and read out where we've got people today?
Yeah, we've got quite a few already responded. We've got Steph, she recognises she's that top right red quadrant. Greg's bottom left, Kim as well. Hannah, top right. Bobby, yellow leaning into green. Thank you, Bobby. Luke's identified top left. So we're already starting to see a mixture, and I think that kind of demonstrates brilliantly that even on a small call with a handful of participants, statistically, you will always find a variety of different styles, and that will present opportunities and challenges in terms of communication. Nicola, mostly blue, so that's bottom right. Dola's popped in top left and right, depending on context. That's a good example. And when we recognize that in different environments, in different scenarios, you will flip slightly from side to side. But as Jo Joe said, we tend to find people do have a go-to comfy place. Miriam, top right, Diana, bottom right. So we pretty much got every style covered, and probably a couple of people in each one.
And nobody said I sit in the middle, which is fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay. So moving on to our first pillar for effective communication, let's take a look at emotional intelligence through this definition. Now, I mentioned previously, if you can't recognize and understand your own communication preferences, you're going to find it difficult to move through the 4 areas of emotional intelligence to increase your own EQ. You need to think of emotional intelligence as your inner compass. It's that thing that helps you respond, not react. It's also a lens that helps you navigate the emotional complexity in teams and conversations, especially when those stakes are high or when people are very different from you. Now, emotional intelligence is generally broken into 4 areas. Step 1 could show up as you being able to label your own emotions and understand how they impact your own behavior. Step 2 could involve you being able to control impulses or manage stress by adapting to changing situations. Step 3 involves you being able to read social cues. That could be nonverbal communication also, and be able to appreciate the feelings and perspectives of others. And we also refer to that as empathy, having empathy with somebody. And then step 4, relationship management. This happens when you can master steps 1 to 3 and communicate effectively, using your own emotional intelligence to be able to build strong relationships, influence and work collaboratively with others, whatever your differences are. But how does it show up at work? Yeah, we've all seen the different teams with high emotional intelligence. They feel calmer, they feel safer to work in, they're more collaborative to work with or engage with than those without emotional intelligence or high emotional intelligence. They can feel chaotic, dysfunctional and stressful, to say the least. The good news is that emotional intelligence is a learned skill. We're not born with it or without it. We grow it through small moments of self-awareness. And soon enough, that learning, it shifts from conscious incompetence, I know what I don't know, to unconscious competence, where we're just doing it naturally. And then we're able to listen actively and interrupt less, to give clear feedback. And in being able to control our emotions, tough conversations, they just don't seem so overwhelming. Now, in the workplace, a lack of emotional intelligence often shows up in poor timing, poor tone, or misreading somebody else's signals. Most communication challenges aren't about what we actually say, they're about how we say it and when we say it. And emotional intelligence is what helps you pause and ask yourself, what's really going on here? And then it helps you choose a better way to show up. So I'd like you to have a moment to think of an example of where poor emotional intelligence from somebody in your workplace, I don't want any names, just the situation of how the lack of emotional intelligence impacted the situation. And if anybody's willing to share one, that's great. But Craig, I can't see everybody, so maybe you'd like to start us off with an example? And Nicola does. Yeah, I can see Nicola's hand up.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Nicola. So, yeah, look, let's talk one specific example, which frames quite nicely part of what Joe said there, which is the first 2 aspects are around self-awareness, and then the others are more around others. I'm working with an MD currently in a business locally. We're based just outside Bristol. And he's a highly emotionally driven character. He's a natural people person. So he thinks he's got the bit around the relationship side and others nailed. There are some challenges with that because in reality, the first 2 aspects around himself aren't really fully under control. And what that manifests itself as is he has a central leadership team meeting every week. And in that meeting, he will bring his emotions, either his excitement around the way that the business is performing or his anxiety when things are going bad into that meeting. And that has an enormous impact on that team's ability to show up and be present in that meeting in an effective way, because they don't know which which MD or which CEO is arriving that day, what mood is he going to be in, how was his weekend, how's he feeling about the cash flow status, the P&L status of the business, and how will that impact on the way this meeting plays out. We've done a lot of work around it to try and help him smooth out those meetings, but I can tell you for free that over the course of the last 7 or 8 years that I've known him, and I've not been working with him that long, just a caveat, I've only been working with him for a few months, but I've known him on and off for 6 or 7 years, and that leadership team's been like a revolving door. And the core reason for that is the behaviours that I'm demonstrating here, along with other things. This is quite a big factor in why he's not been able to hold together a team that can work together, trust each other, and work effectively.
Okay.
So hopefully that helps bring a bit of context. Nicola, do you want to share?
Hi, yeah, sure. I'll try and put it as succinctly as you did, Craig. In a previous life, let's put it that way. I had a manager, I don't know if this is a bit left field, but it feels like it resonates for me, who was just only ever happy. Only ever things were great, everything was happy, which is normally perceived as a positive. But what that really constructed was a team that lacked drive, because you sometimes need to know when you're not on the right pathway in a clear way. Talked about clear feedback on that last slide, and adapting to personalities and being able to give Nicola the feedback that she needs to grow, to develop, not just well done, well done, well done all the time. So again, I don't know if that was a bit over there, but it seemed relevant to me.
It's really relevant. Yeah, sorry, Joe, to dive in. It's really relevant because in reality, when we talk about those quadrants that Joe shared on the graph earlier on, some of those segments aren't always happy. Some of those segments don't find over happiness really easy to deal with. They find it quite irritating. And so being able to blend that style is really important.
Indeed, I found it confusing. I'm naturally, I quite like clear direction. I'm a people person, and this manager was also an absolute people person. But that bit just didn't quite fit, because I'm like, it's all great about the people, but where are we going?
Yeah, good share. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola. That's really, really good. That's really good. I did see somebody else typing, but that's cool. Okay, yeah. So as we said, it's all about timing, isn't it? And things like that, they can really be they can be career destroying, to be fair, because if you're a person who's really, really driven and that other person's not recognized that, then you're sat there, give me some feedback so I can grow. And they're like, yeah, everything's great today. So not what we want. But it can also show up in other ways. It could be a poorly timed email. Somebody's like, keyboard warrior, sends that. I don't care how people receive it at the other end, as long as I've got it off my chest. Not a good thing. Or maybe it was a tone in a meeting. The happy tone, maybe it was. Actually, we needed some serious in there, but it could be the other way as well. It could be sharpness, bluntness, directness. Or it could be this one, poorly judged humour. I didn't kind of know what picture to put there because I didn't really want to put a smiley face, but this lady says it all to me. She doesn't look very happy. The way we respond in these moments can actually build trust, but also equally it can break it. Don't get me wrong, emotional intelligence isn't easy to master, but it is worth embarking on the journey by investing in education for yourself and others for personal development. And in the resource that you'll receive after the event, you will find an area that refers to mindsets in relation to emotional intelligence. Now, each of us will naturally be good at some of them. They'll feel really comfortable, your go-to place. And then there are those that are going to feel really alien. But they're your opportunities. They are your opportunities to show up somewhere else, for choosing a better way. So make sure you take some time to understand where your own personal growth opportunities lie when you receive that. Okay, managing those emotional responses. Think back to our first slide on personality styles, when we looked at how different people behave, communicate, and prefer their preferences in communication. And this links directly to emotional intelligence, how we manage our own emotional responses. Some people go quiet. Some people go blunt, as I just said. Some over-apologize. Some are too rigid. But none of these are wrong. But knowing your own default go-to helps you choose a better response next time. And a great practical way to help you with this is to use this model: pause, label, reframe. Pause a couple of seconds before you react. Just a small amount of time will move your emotional knee-jerk reaction from your amygdala at the front of your brain, which is often impulsive and reactive and defensive, to your prefrontal cortex, which is where that rational thinking happens. So a couple of seconds to pause. Label. Understand and label how you're feeling. This helps with the intensity of the emotion. And if you can't name it, then you can't tame it. And being able to name your emotions helps you spot those in other people. And then the third one, reframe the story. Don't make assumptions that you know. When something goes wrong, it's really easy to fall into that unhelpful thinking of like, they're out to get me. Reframing it and shifting that story to actually what else might be going on here, that reduces the emotional overwhelm and it also builds resilience. So a few slides ago, I asked you to look at how someone else's lack of emotional intelligence impacted a situation. Now I'm going to ask you to think of a time when your own emotions helped or hindered your message. And how did it affect that outcome? So just take a few moments to think and reflect, and chuck something in the chat or raise your hand if somebody'd like to share as an example. That would be great. Before I pick on Craig again. Hannah, fabulous. Hannah's put a hand up.
I'm just checking you can hear me.
Yes.
Yes, okay, I've just changed my headphones over. So this is one where my emotions definitely hindered me. So I'm holding my hands up and saying, even as a very much a people person, we do sometimes get it wrong ourselves. Team meeting, I manage a very small team, and there is a lot of conflict within a team of 3 people, and various protocols that have been agreed over time, such as no more than one person being off on holiday at a time. I came back from leave to find out 3 separate occasions my team had agreed to be off together for a week or more at a time, which obviously was not particularly helpful. And somebody else in the meeting said, oh, well, okay, no problem with that. You know, we'll just move forward to make sure it doesn't happen again. And I said, no, I'm really sorry. I'm going to have to interrupt here. This is not acceptable. And the person who I was dealing with is somebody who I think has no emotional intelligence, likes to be very blunt and critical of other people. And I decided to try and, I suppose, give her a taste of her own medicine. So I said to her, you know, you speak very, very bluntly to me. I'm somebody who will respond in the way that I talk to somebody, social cues, whatever else, you know, and therefore you obviously like to be spoken to directly. So I'm going to afford you that same level of courtesy. And I got a little bit too angry and a little bit too wound up. I didn't shout, I didn't swear, but I made my point far too emotionally. I didn't pause and I didn't have time to label it. And I know that the outcome of that was an email then from a very unhappy person. And yeah, the situation didn't go well. So I think that's an example. I'm very much an empath and normally relatively in control of emotions. But that's an example where I was just pushed too far and could have well benefited from that from that model that you've just referred to.
Do you know what? Thank you so much for sharing, because you could have chose one that helped you, but you chose one that hindered you, and that's really brave and honest to do so. But it's a really good example for everybody else on the call to be able to kind of see and feel that. I have got an endless list of ones that have hindered me through my years. Too many to share, but believe me, I struggle to necessarily think of the good ones. They always, the bad ones come back to haunt me. Does anybody else feel comfortable to share? Nicola's written something in there. An overzealous, very directive, critical co-manager brought back memories of a school bully. My trigger was to respond with emotion, not helpful. Yeah. Do you know what?
It's a great example, isn't it? Yeah, it's a really good. It's another really good example. I'll give you a quick one, and I'm a consultant, so for me, the space we're in and my ability to earn a living is absolutely dictated by my ability to read the room and to work out how to get on with people. And again, I'm going to tell you a story of where I got it wrong rather than one where I got it right. I worked with a very senior leader in London for a long time. And we were very different styles. I'm that top left corner, so I'm very fast paced and I'm kind of results focused. This particular individual was the opposite side of the map. So wanted to consider things a lot more and was much more people oriented. And so I wanted to deliver actions. They wanted to understand how those actions would impact people. And I would go into meetings with this person who I thought I'd developed this wonderful relationship with. I thought I'd got it nailed, convinced that everything I was asking them to work on with me, we were buying into. And for about 18 months, quite often would use a phrase of, I'll get back to you on that. It took me 18 months because of my lack of emotional intelligence to work out that that was code for, I don't want to do that.
But I don't
Really
want to tell
simple.
you.
Yeah, really simple example. And then some behavioral changes on my side allowed us to unlock those conversations and start to understand more what about the blockers were and how we could progress forward, or whether I'd hit a line that that person didn't want to pass. So yeah, I don't come at this from a point of expertise at all. Our job as consultants and as Culture Stretch is to help people on that journey, and we're on that journey too. So I think that's important.
Yeah, we definitely are. Emotional intelligence, it does start with noticing, and that awareness, as you've just quite rightly said there, is that most crucial step to change. If you can notice your own patterns and how you behave, then you can begin to shape them. So a really good activity to take away from here is for you to spend 20 to 30 minutes writing down as many emotions as possible that you feel in a week. Start to label them. By identifying them like this, it's a really good way to start that labeling process. And when they happen, you can recognize them rather than thinking like, oh, I'm just this, or I'm just this. I'm happy, or I'm sad. I'm frustrated. I'm disappointed. Could be a deeper emotion. And when you can start to label and recognize emotions, you can start to spot them in other people. And as I said, step 4, relationship management, you can start to use your emotional intelligence because you understand what emotions are being displayed in front of you to step back, change, and then help somebody else change their emotions. Okay, let's move on to the next pillar of effective communication, psychological safety. You may or may not know Amy Edmondson's model of psychological safety, but it isn't about being nice all the time. It's about creating an environment where people can show up as themselves, where they can question, they can challenge, they can offer new ideas, but without feeling judgment or consequences. And teams with high psychological safety aren't perfect, but they are real. And that's what makes them stronger. Let's take a brief look at the psychological safety model. The first one here on Amy Edmondson's model is inclusion safety. And that means to encourage the diverse perspectives within your team or group of people and to foster a culture of respect and acceptance. Moving into learner safety, this only becomes present when you are able to promote experimentation without the fear of repercussions, though. And that also enables and supports continuous growth and learning for those around you. Excuse me, when you can tell people to go try something different and they're not going to get, reprimanded for it or laughed at because of it or judged, then they continue to come back. Why don't we try this? Why don't we try that? Let's go try something else. Let's learn. The third one, contributor safety, is about encouraging active participation and input from everyone. This itself, it demonstrates that you value contributions. And in turn, it helps people foster ownership. Okay, let's move on to the last one. Challenger safety. Sounds pretty scary, but it means to encourage constructive dissent and critical feedback in your teams. Now, that is about speaking up with alternative views or concerns, but in a way that moves the conversation forward, not shuts it down with somebody contributing that I'm right and this is the way. Always supporting open dialogue and new ideas and changes should be encouraged in your teams to get this full flow of psychological safety. Yeah, how does it feel when it's missing? Well, this is the image that I think it looks like. It's a bit like an iceberg. The real stuff is not on show, and that's not cohesive for any team or any environment. Often when people aren't speaking up, it's not because they don't care, it's because they don't feel safe. Next time you're in a team meeting or run a team meeting, Look at where those voices aren't coming from. It's not that they don't want to speak up. They're worried about how it will land. How will they be made to feel? And whether it's worth that risk. If you want open, honest conversations and you don't want a culture of blame, then if you're a leader on here, you have to go first by showing people that it is safe to do so. So whether you're a leader in a permanent team or whether you're working on a cross-functional team without a leader, or you're in a group project with no direct leader, there are 3 simple behaviours you can apply to start creating psychological safety within your team. And the first thing you can do is admit your own mistakes. This sets the bar that it is safe to make them in order to experiment and fail and learn. Then you can ask questions to show real interest and to clarify understanding. And then really, really listen. What is that person saying? And then thirdly, genuinely thank people for challenging the norm. These people are also looking for a way forward, a better way forward to help everyone. In the resource that you're going to be receiving, I've listed lots more questions to help you in actually creating psychological safety, some real deeper, more intimate ones. So have a look at that. But remember, it is important to know that you don't create psychological safety by just saying, you can speak freely here. You actually create it by showing repeatedly that when people do speak up, they're heard and they're respected and they're supported. And it's not just what you do, it's how you say that as well. Okay. This may seem like it's going to be a tense one, but it's not. Moving into our third one, productive conflict. It's the third and final pillar for me of effective communication. Whilst conflict is a difference of opinions leading to a disagreement, productive conflict is not about avoiding disagreement. Think about that. It's important to remember that conflict isn't the enemy of great culture. In fact, it's quite the opposite. When it's done well, it's what helps us challenge assumptions, test new ideas, and get stronger solutions. So you can see how it links into psychological safety as well. But the key is knowing how to do this productively. Now, many people avoid conflict because they've only ever experienced that unproductive kind, the kind that we had some situations referred to earlier. And that's the kind that feels unsafe or even unresolved. But actually, when conflict's done with care and curiosity and clear communication, it can build stronger teams, not break them down. Now, unproductive conflict often rears its head in things like personal attacks on one another, silent resentment, simmering in actions like stonewalling someone, or power struggles leading to gossip after meetings or even silos. So flip those behaviours, flip them to a more positive space and use conflict productively. Set some boundaries within the group or the team that you're in and ensure that you are yourself and encourage others to be issue focused. Don't get personal. And that you are forward thinking. You're not bringing up negative past situations. Also that you use a respectful tone when speaking. As with emotional intelligence, it's not often what you say, it's how you say it. And most importantly, ensure that you are listening, actively listening, to understand what's being said rather than to respond to a comment. So in practice, you can't actually control how others behave. We know that, but you can control how you show up. You can control how that looks in moments of tension. Very similarly to emotional intelligence, your tone, your body language, and your willingness to listen can either escalate or de-escalate tension. You need to model what good looks like, and often others will follow that. So a few practical tips that could help you get started. Again, for the same reasons that we use the pause, not only for you, but for the other person. Pause before any kind of reaction. Remember what I said about the removing it from that knee-jerk reaction back to that rational thinking. When I say any kind of reaction, I mean non-verbal as well, not just verbal. Ask yourself, what's really going on here? What's happening? What assumptions am I making? And what is this? What's happening with this person? Stick to the facts. Assumptions can take you down some really dark rabbit holes, and they're not easy to reverse out of. Be aware of your language. Try not to use, or don't use, loaded language such as you always. That's a trigger. Use I language such as I've noticed. And then clarify intent. What outcome are you both hoping for? Trying to travel this road together. Now, these sound simple, but they're often missed in the heat of the moment. That pause and the clarity of intent can change everything in conflict. You're not just raising a point, you're trying to show how you want to move forward together over my little conflict bridge. I'm bringing this to us because I want us to solve it together. So think of a phrase that you can use that shows that joined up thinking. Okay, now feels like a really good time to reground ourselves. So I'd like to ask you to think, when you're in conflict, are you showing up to win or to understand? Being human while disagreeing is the ultimate leadership skill. And productive conflict, it doesn't mean soft. It means clear, curious, and kind. You could select an anchor phrase such as, I'm here to understand, not to win. That could help you in the moment. That could ground you, could give you that pause. Because remember, you can't control others, but you can control your breath, your tone, and your intention. So it's important to stay away from those unproductive behaviours such as blame or avoidance or talking over people, and then move towards curiosity and respectful challenge with phrases like, help me to understand. So here's a question. What gets under your skin? And then be honest with yourself. What's the one behaviour that you see in yourself when you are in conflict? And if you're happy to, share it in the chat. Let's have a moment of honesty around us all. I will go first. I quite often find myself talking over people to get my point across. Yes, because I'm at a later stage in life and I forget, but mainly it's about being heard over people, and it's not nice. So feel free to think about this and pop them in the chat. Or pop your hand up if you'd like to verbalise it. Really happy for that as well. Hannah says any kind of sense of injustice gets under my skin. Or lying. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Yeah, silence. Yeah, stonewalling. I refuse to be in on this. A few more of you are typing. Nobody's put their hand up. That's cool. Gaslighting. Somebody telling a lie and trying to make me buy it gets under my skin. Thanks, Steph. That's just not nice. Mariam, I'm frustrated in personal life. In my personal life, I'm not listening to others. If I'm frustrated in my personal life, I'm not listening to others. But in work, I'm totally opposite. Yeah, we do have the ability to do that. When we look at personality profiling, quite often I hear people say, yeah, this resonates in work, but I'm so different at home. There's a difference in our relationships at home. We trust people at home. We trust that we can speak up and show up in a different way. Greg, I go quiet. So you withdraw, Greg, or you stonewall people?
A bit of both, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of go to a place where it's actually no longer a productive conversation, because I've retreated into a place where, you know what, this is going nowhere, so I'm just going to shut up, and then that lead that's then doesn't deliver any type of outcome, you know. So and you just it builds resentment and frustration. instead of probably coming back with a sensible question like you've just said there to try and have a productive conversation. I then just go quiet, and then I'm resigned to the fact that we're going nowhere.
Okay, cool. Thank you for sharing. Kim says, I avoid or rush to get past that conflict because I don't like it. Dola's gone. And Nicola says, people using language that make others feel small. Yeah, not nice. Okay, thank you for being honest and sharing that. I think sometimes it helps us to stop and think about what we do. Hard, but it's a good exercise. But that's it for today's session. I hope you've enjoyed it. Looking at some of the takeaways here. Remember, emotional intelligence is about managing yourself to better connect with others. And they're all linked, but psychological safety is where people feel free and feel safe to speak up without fear or judgment of repercussions. And productive conflict is about learning to face tension with curiosity and care to move forward together. And these aren't just nice ideas, they are leadership essentials. And when you lead with them, your team culture shifts in big and small ways. And when you live with them in any team that you're in, you bring a different level of openness to your communication, which everyone benefits from. I've really enjoyed 44 minutes of your time so far. Hopefully I've inspired you to make at least one change for the betterment of yourself and either the team you lead or the team you're a part of today. I'd love to hear what that might be. If somebody has a quick, yeah, I'm really comfortable to share that I'm going to do this. Raise your hand, or if you don't want to do that, just pop it in the comments. That's fantastic. It's cool. Kim is typing. Steph's had to go. That's cool. It's fine.
Sorry, Joe. I was thinking when you were talking, and so I missed your question, I think.
Oh yeah, is there something you'd like to share that a step that you would like to change from today, just from what we've been through, the 3 pillars that we've been through?
We can give I know Kim's style, so she probably wants a minute to think that through.
Yeah,
so,
we can give Kim some space after.
Hannah's actually popped a hand. She's laughing. Hannah's popped a hand up, so let's see what Hannah says.
I think probably quite an obvious one, but the using that model to just pause and think about things, but also labeling the reactions. I think I am going to write a list of the emotions, how I would label them, because I think the more I can identify those in myself, the easier it will be to then help share that within the team. So I think probably that's the first one that I'm going to use and take note of. So
lovely, Hannah. Thank you. Okay. The recording will be sent out to you by close of play tomorrow, along with the 2 resources. The first one is an ebook about conflict and the reasons it often happens within the workplace. And the other is a communication booklet that we have put together especially for this session, with some team and individual activities in there to help you embed what you've taken from today. For more resources, please visit our website. If you're facing a team, people, or leadership challenge that you would like some fresh perspective on, or support with any of the topics that we've talked about today, then please reach out. Culture stretch, our people is passion, but don't forget, effective communication is the basis for any high-performing team. So lean into what we've given you today. Any questions here? I can't see all hands, so I don't know. Wonderful. Okay, right, that's it. Thank you so much. Greg is typing. Great session. Thank you, Greg. Thank you. Thank you very much. Feel free to drop off. And my tech wizard is on holiday, but I promise I'll try and get this in your inbox tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming along, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you so much.